Hello and welcome to Emotionally Speaking. I'm Carla McLaren and we have a question this week about heartache. And I'll read it to you. I grew up in an emotionally neglectful, cold environment, and it feels as if I have a huge hole in my heart that just feels more pained and gnawing as time goes on. I feel desperate to heal this pain. Welcome to this pain. Something that was fascinating to me about this question is in growing up in a cold and loveless environment, this person still developed the capacity to feel and want love, which is a great triumph of the human spirit, right? So instead of becoming cold and loveless, this person never lost the need for it. So what we have, emotionally speaking, is sadness, obviously, and grief. Grief for the loss or the absence of the thing that never was. And there's also some jealousy and envy. Jealousy specifically wanting to have a healthy love. And envy, perhaps envying people who had it without even asking in their own families. So this is a very tender situation and experience, and it's important to understand that these emotions, in not going away, are still telling you what's important and what is going to be necessary as you move forward, even though it may be impossible to imagine that this kind of thing could occur. Something that I wanted to talk about in terms of this is that we're also looking at attachment. And there is a relatively new field of psychotherapy called attachment therapy or attachment theory. And I think it would be good to read. This is a book that we found that is very simple. It's called Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. And it talks about attachment as something that we all learned in childhood, and that can either help us or hinder us as we move forward. And there are 4 kinds of attachment. This book, because it's simpler, it talks about 3. The 3 it talks about are secure attachment, which is you attach securely and you can feel and give love easily, and you're loyal. There's anxious attachment, where you are very, very aware of attachment and your partner. And if that partner is not himself or herself secure, your anxious attachment system may go a little bit off and get very intense because you're not reading the cues that would tell you that this is a secure attachment. Now, sometimes your anxious attachment system can be so anxious that you don't even read a secure attachment person. So it's important to get on top of an anxious attachment because it can sort of lead you in a very uncomfortable direction. And there are things you could do, and this book talks about what you can do about an anxious attachment system. Now, there's also an avoidant attachment system, and it sounds like this person grew up with people who were avoidant, who didn't have the capacity to attach securely or even anxiously. They just didn't know how. And they probably learned it in their childhood. So you can also look at avoidant systems and maybe understand them better, not as intentionally mean people, although many avoidant people can come off as very mean. They're just protecting themselves from an attachment that they don't know how to function in. Like they have no skills in it. They don't know what it means. And for many avoidant people, secure attachment can feel like they're being suffocated. So it's important to understand these 3 kinds of attachment. Now, there's a 4th kind called, I think some people call it chaotic, some people call it disorganized. And this is an attachment system of someone who had probably, it can be neurological in origin, but it can also be a part of a very chaotic early childhood or chaotic attachment from, say, an addicted parent, or a parent who was mentally ill, though addicts and mentally ill people can be secure attachers and they can do well around their difficulties and raise securely attached kids. So it's not like, certainly it's going to happen. But something goes on in the early life of chaotic or disorganized attached people that makes it so that they really don't know how to do it, right? And this could also be the situation with the adults in this person's life. So definitely love and celebrate the emotions that have come up to say, no, secure attachment is crucial and it is what I want, even if you haven't seen it. Listen to the sadness and the grief and the jealousy and the envy. They have tremendously important things to tell you. And look at books on attachment. And maybe even go and see a person who does attachment therapy, because it is a game changer. It's a life changer if you can figure out what kind of attachment you have and what the downsides of that attachment system are. Now, one of the things that this book says is find a securely attached person and everything will be great. But for some reason, I am securely attached. I attach very well to my mom. And so I am supposedly the best kind of attachment. But there's a problem in secure attachment, which is that once I'm attached to you, I'm bonded. And if you're not well, or if you're avoidant, or if you're, going into, a tailspin, or if you're going into addiction, that kind of thing, my bond gets stronger. So I had to teach myself to unattach, which is very difficult for a securely attached person. I had to actually teach myself to go, nope, no. That person needs to go on their own journey and not, drag me down with them. So it's not as if you have secure attachment, you're done. You also have to learn about how your attachment system works and works against you sometimes. So it's not as if I win, right? Or securely attached people win. We all have to be very careful about our capacity for attachment. So embrace your heartache. It means you're still alive. Emotionally speaking, it means your emotions and your hopes and your dreams and your wishes are still engaged. And yes, you can find love as long as you work with what happened to you, understand it, and be able to identify avoidant attachers. Because a lot of people who are raised by avoidant attachers choose them as adults. And so the story keeps going. But it's not a very good story. So you can sort of break that story and put in let's put in new pages, new information, and then sort of retrain your organism to say, oh, that's an avoidant attacher. Yeah, I want to avoid that. Oh, there's a secure relationship. Oh, that's an anxious relationship. So that your emotions and your whole sort of psyche can begin to identify and articulate different kinds of relationships and attachments, so that you won't sort of be a stranger in paradise. Thank you for the question, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.